Leonard Pratt walked through Tampa International Airport with the calm swagger of a veteran pilot uniform pressed, badge gleaming and suitcase in tow. Sarah Monroe moved with quiet confidence through the halls of a Miami retirement home, treating patients with the precision of a seasoned nurse. Keith Mendel flashed red and blue lights on Florida highways, pulling over innocent drivers like a real cop. Felix Green stood behind a pulpit in Jacksonville, preaching salvation as Reverend Brian, while Alex Granger rushed to emergency scenes, posing as a heroic paramedic. But none of them were who they claimed to be. Always dressed in a crisp paramedic uniform, he seemed to be everywhere. Accident scenes, roadside emergencies, even neighborhood block parties where he offered free health checks. A car crash at a busy intersection brought multiple emergency vehicles to the scene. Among them was Alex, already tending to a young woman with a bleeding arm. But this time, the real paramedics didn't ignore him. One box even contained fake morphine vials filled with water. He had once applied to EMT school, but dropped out after failing his entrance exam. In 2 cases, he had even transported people in his SUV before real responders could arrive. One of those people later died in the hospital due to complications, and though it was never proven that Alex's interference caused it, it raised serious legal questions. What followed was a years-long obsession with playing the role. He had altered his vehicle himself, using kits ordered from websites and carefully replicating markings from local EMS departments. Local news even did a small feature on him, calling him Jacksonville's street shepherd. With the media attention came larger donations, cash from small businesses, free food from restaurants, even vehicles donated for his so-called outreach team. He moved through the city like a man on a mission. His social media was filled with photos of staged emergencies, where he posed with injured bystanders who thought he was the real deal. One former volunteer, a retired priest, became uneasy after asking Brian about his ordination and receiving vague, evasive answers. His legal name was Felix Green, and he had been arrested twice in Alabama for charity fraud and identity theft. He had no ties to any church or religious organization. The robes, the credentials, even the diplomas he framed in his office were fake, printed off the internet or bought from novelty websites. When he tried to verify the church affiliations, Brian claimed none of them existed. Suspicion turned to concern, and eventually, a quiet investigation began. A detective posing as a volunteer began documenting Brian's sermons, financial requests, and behavior. What he found was shocking. With a calm voice and a charismatic presence, he stood in parks, on street corners, and eventually in makeshift churches inside old strip malls, preaching about redemption, love, and community healing. People believed in him. He seemed to have a special ability to connect with the broken and the lost, especially those struggling with addiction and poverty. Over time, his gatherings grew. Abbott his baptisms in public fountains, hosted marriages in parking lots, and even started collecting donations to open a halfway house for recovering addicts. His entire setup was a collection of surplus items purchased online, donated by unaware supporters, or stolen from unattended ambulances. When he was told he was under investigation for impersonation and misuse of emergency identifiers, his confident facade finally cracked. But the Bodycam footage told the truth there. In full color was a man playing hero, whose lies could have easily turned deadly. They noticed that while his uniform looked legitimate, it had small inconsistencies, patches stitched incorrectly, an outdated emblem, and no name tag. He was also giving instructions to licensed paramedics, something that raised eyebrows. His vehicle, a white SUV with flashing red lights and decals reading Emergency Medical Services, looked official. He spoke in the clipped, confident tone of someone used to pressure, and many residents called him a guardian angel for arriving on scene even before 911 responders. No one ever thought to question his legitimacy. They weren't licensed, they weren't trained, they weren't real, and they all got caught in Bodycam. This is the chilling story of 6 Florida fakers who lived a lie so well, they almost got away with it. He handed over a laminated ID card that looked official, but listed a license number that didn't T-register in any state database. He insisted he was certified, that he'd worked rescue services in multiple counties, but when pressed for further details, his answers grew shaky. In Tampa, Florida, a man named Alex Granger quickly became a familiar face in the local community. It all started to unravel on a humid July afternoon. One paramedic stepped aside and contacted dispatch, requesting a supervisor and law enforcement. Deputies arrived shortly after, body cams activated. Alex didn't flinch when questioned. Deputies opened the rear of his SUV and found a full stock of medical gear, oxygen tanks, 4 bags, trauma kits. Most of it was either expired or improperly stored. At the station, the deeper truth came out. Alex had no medical training. Shockingly, records showed he had attended over 25 emergency scenes in just 3 months. His arrest stunned the community. Many couldn't believe the man they had trusted with their lives had no qualifications. In Jacksonville, Florida, a man calling himself Reverend Brian Daniels built a devoted following almost overnight. No one questioned his background. He wore the collar, carried a Bible worn at the edges, and seemed to speak with the wisdom of someone touched by divine understanding. But beneath the surface, something didn't add up. Brian Daniels wasn't ordained. In fact, that wasn't even his real name. His legal name was Felix Green, and he had been arrested twice in Alabama for charity fraud and identity theft. He had no ties to any church or religious organization. The robes, the credentials, even the diplomas he framed in his office were fake, printed off the internet or bought from novelty websites. The final blow came when a couple, married by Felix just weeks before, learned their marriage wasn't legally binding. He wasn't authorized to perform weddings, and he hadn't filed any official paperwork with the county clerk. He pulled over, confused, as he hadn't been speeding. Incidents of police impersonation had risen, and the description of the vehicle and suspect matched several complaints from earlier weeks. In each case, drivers had been pulled over on quiet roads by someone in a black sedan with flashing lights. He claimed he was part of a task force, but he couldn't name the agency or produce a badge number. Deputies noticed that his gear, though convincing, had inconsistencies: a plastic badge, a non-lethal training weapon in his holster, and a voice radio that wasn't connected to any official network. His arrest was captured entirely on Bodycam, where the layers of illusion fell away, revealing nothing more than a man with a badge he didn't earn and a dangerous desire to control. Among the staff, one nurse stood out. Ellie, always in crisp scrubs, her ID badge swinging gently from her lanyard. She moved from room to room with calm efficiency, administering medications, checking vitals, and offering warm reassurances. The elderly residents adored her. She was patient, gentle, and attentive. Families of residents praised her regularly during visits. To many, Ellie wasn't just a nurse, she was the heart of the facility. His tactical vest bore a patch reading Federal Enforcement Unit, a fictional agency he made up. Some were warned about imaginary violations, others asked for cash fines on the spot. No one was ever given a written citation. It was meant to be a simple licensing review. But when officials requested verification for all staff, they noticed something strange. Ellie's nursing license number didn't match her name. In fact, it belonged to a nurse who had retired 5 years earlier. The administrators were stunned. They had never thought to question her credentials. Her references had checked out Tor, so they thought, and her demeanor gave no reason for doubt. A man stepped out of a black Dodge Charger, wearing tactical gear with a badge hanging around his neck and a sidearm on his hip. They placed unmarked units along the stretch of highway where the fake cop was most active and instructed officers to remain alert for any vehicle resembling the black Dodge Charger. It didn't take long. On a Thursday night, one of the troopers watched as a vehicle matching the suspect's car pulled over a woman in a minivan. The trooper followed and initiated a real traffic stop moments later, catching the imposter mid-interaction. Since then, he had developed an obsession with authority, turning fantasy into reality. He had never been certified in any law enforcement capacity. His arrests sent shockwaves through the community as residents questioned how someone could operate undetected for so long. He approached with authority, telling Travis he had been swerving and asking for license and registration. Everything about the situation felt real, until the officer abruptly walked back to his car without explanation and drove off. There were blank traffic citation forms, police scanners, fake credentials, and even a clipboard with notes about common patrol routes. He had studied law enforcement routines obsessively and created a script for each type of traffic stop. But worst of all, there were dashcam videos recordings he had made of previous stops, where he played the role of officer while intimidating and questioning innocent drivers. Deputies walked up slowly, waiting until he had finished his closing prayer. As they asked for his credentials, he stammered, unable to offer any. He was arrested on the spot, and his flock watched in stunned silence as their reverend was handcuffed and taken away. Angry and humiliated, they joined others who had given him money, food, and time. Their stories painted a picture of a master manipulator who used religion as a disguise to control and deceive. When authorities moved in, bodycam footage showed Felix mid-sermon, standing in front of a dozen followers and folding chairs beneath a tent. The fallout was immense. Donations dried up, volunteers vanished, and trust in local ministries took a hit. But for many, the greatest betrayal was emotional. They had believed in something pure, only to discover it was built on lies. The collar had been a costume, the sermons, a script, and the faith they placed in him used for profit. Late one evening near Orlando, a man named Travis Horn was driving down the interstate when flashing red and blue lights suddenly lit up behind him. Feeling unsettled, Travis called the Florida Highway Patrol to report the strange encounter. Officers took the report seriously. Over the next few days, state troopers launched a targeted sting operation. Bodycam footage showed the man's surprise when he realized he was being confronted by real law enforcement. Inside the vehicle, investigators found more disturbing details. The suspect, identified as Keith Mendel, was a former mall security guard who had been terminated years ago for overstepping his role. Mendel was charged with impersonating an officer, unlawful use of police insignia, and attempted fraud. In a luxury retirement community nestled in the heart of Miami, residents felt safe and well cared for. No one suspected anything was wrong until the Florida Department of Health conducted a routine audit. It was meant to be a simple licensing review. But when officials requested verification for all staff, they noticed something strange. Ellie's nursing license number didn't match her name. In fact, it belonged to a nurse who had retired 5 years earlier. The administrators were stunned. They had never thought to question her credentials. More alarmingly, her patient notes contained several medical errors. While none had led to serious harm, the potential for danger was clear. Her references had checked out or so, they thought, and her demeanor gave no reason for doubt. The facility's management faced serious scrutiny, and new regulations were quickly implemented to prevent similar incidents. Her story served as a chilling reminder that not every uniform represents the truth. Beneath the calm smile and soothing words was a woman who had fooled everyone till the cameras caught the truth and her false identity crumbled. But the emotional damage had already been done. The people who had trusted her with their lives felt betrayed. Among them was a man who seemed to blend in, perfectly dressed in a sharp, navy blue Pilot S uniform. Wings pinned neatly to his chest, rolling a black suitcase behind him. His suitcase even contained a clipboard with flight schedules, flight manuals, and paperwork with fictional assignments. Security and deputies, bodycams recording, approached him calmly but firmly. He remained composed as they asked for ID, producing a badge that appeared legitimate at first glance. But when scanned, it registered as inactive. Confronted with the facts, his demeanor shifted. Without resistance, he allowed himself to be escorted away, maintaining the illusion of dignity until the very end. He didn't just want to dress like a pilot, he wanted to live as one. He had been sneaking into restricted areas, using timing and familiarity with routines to slip through security points undetected. His boldness was stunning. Nodded at gate agents, and even passed through employee-only security doors with a practiced swipe of a fake ID. Cross-referencing staff logs confirmed that no such pilot existed in the system. Yet multiple employees had seen him in uniform, walking freely through secure areas. A full flight simulator setup was connected to 3 monitors. Shelves were lined with flight manuals, aviation maps, and notebooks filled with fake flight logs. Thanks to sharp witnesses, body cams, and alert authorities, their acts were exposed on camera in real time. Florida remains a place of sunshine and secrets, and sometimes those secrets wear a uniform. He had studied for years not to become a real pilot, but to perfect the performance of one. Suspicions quickly escalated, and airport security, working with local authorities, began covert surveillance. His arrest made headlines and raised alarms about airport security vulnerabilities. The Bodycam footage of his final moments in uniform was surreal, an actor stepping off a stage built on lies. He gave the impression of a seasoned pilot on a layover, someone who had flown countless routes and carried the calm assurance of someone used to responsibility at 30,000 feet. Investigators from the health department, working with law enforcement, launched a quiet probe. He was seen regularly in terminals, chatting with airport staff, sometimes even boarding parked aircraft for what he claimed were pre-flight checks or inspections. For weeks, no one questioned him. He spoke the lingo, wore the right gear, and knew just enough about aviation protocol to fool even seasoned crew members. But beneath the uniform, there was a secret no one suspected. Captain Reed wasn't a pilot. In fact, his real name was Leonard Pratt, and he had never flown a commercial plane in his life. They began monitoring Ellie's routines and reviewing her application documents. It didn't take long to uncover the truth. Ellie was actually Sarah Monroe, a woman who had attended nursing school but was expelled after being caught falsifying clinical hours. She had never received a license. Instead, she had used stolen information and forged documents to build a fake identity as Ellie Parks RN. The evidence was damning. She had been working in the facility for nearly a year, administering medications, assisting with medical charts, and providing treatments without any qualifications. Authorities moved quickly. On the morning of her arrest, deputies entered the facility with body cams rolling. Sarah was in the supply room, sorting prescription medication for the day's rounds. She turned as the officers approached, her face registering a flicker of confusion, then dread. When asked for identification and license verification, she tried to stall, claiming her documents were in her car. But the officers had already confirmed everything. She was handcuffed and escorted through the quiet hallways. She had walked every day at this time under the eyes of shocked coworkers and tearful residents. Her arrest sent a wave of disbelief through the retirement community. Families demanded answers. Sarah Monroe faced multiple charges, including practicing medicine without a license, identity theft, and falsifying medical records. Tampa International Airport was always bustling, a hive of travelers, flight crews, and ground staff moving with coordinated urgency. His name, at least the one on the uniform, was Captain Daniel Reed. The deception began to unravel when a curious airline manager, reviewing shift rosters, noticed something odd. Daniel Reed wasn't listed as a pilot for any flight that day or any day. Leonard's actions were carefully observed. He'd created a nearly flawless identity, complete with fake pilot credentials, a forged ID badge, and uniforms from multiple airlines. The sting operation came to a head when Leonard attempted to access a locked jet bridge. Inside his nearby hotel room, investigators uncovered the full extent of his obsession. Leonard Pratt was charged with felony trespassing, impersonation, and possession of forged government identification. These 6 imposters shared one disturbing trait: the ability to deceive through confidence, costume, and charm. Thanks to sharp witnesses, body cams, and alert authorities, their acts were exposed on camera in real time. Florida remains a place of sunshine and secrets, and sometimes those secrets wear a uniform. Subscribe for more true crime stories daily.